Submarine Titans, one of the RTS games of my childhood. I remember playing the technology demo, containing 3 whole missions, and later getting a hold of the full version, and recently the GOG release. Never got around finishing most of the game, and knowing very little about the campaigns, let's try to finish the White Shark story with the cheapest unit. White Sharks, the crude military faction, equipped with more of a conventional weaponry, has an array of submarines at its disposal. The sub in our focus is the Sentinel, one of the first subs you can build. Lightly armored, comes cheap, and equipped with a hydrofusion weapon with infinite ammo. This small baby boat was always one of my favorite units in the game, besides the chunky DC bomber. I have to mention the Hunter though, Sentinel's main early competitor, which has more hit points, is a bit more expensive, and uses the generic small torpedo, which needs supplying and ammo but gets more upgrades throughout the tech tree. There could be an argument about the Hunter being the more challenging choice, but that's for another day. For now, will Sentinels be able to handle all of the missions on their own? Rules are as follows. Only Sentinels, but I will need resource transports and builders, maybe rep subs, as well as marauders for capturing mission objectives, and I will waste their ammo whenever possible. I will use psychotrons only when I struggle with a mission, and I will explain the building when and if it will become relevant. No static defense? We play on AI strong and normal speed, because I will get overrun probably, and I'll try not to save scam too much. Let's go. We start slowly with the first mission. We are to protect Allied base and research rep-sub technology. After getting rid of 2 stinky ugly starting hunters, I build up my mines, and take care to build a gold extractor early. You can see I started at fast speed to see how it would go, but I quickly changed my mind, and went back to normal. I get scared by a couple of enemy subs early, but they just went by and ate into the fog. Seems like the enemy already has its destroyer subs deployed, which use splinter torpedoes that deal damage in a small radius, and that might be a bit of a hindrance. Well, I say that because the in-game encyclopedia says so, but after a bit of testing, it doesn't seem to do any AoE, so go figure. Let's use this enemy appearance as an opportunity to quickly introduce the Black Octopi, which will be the primary antagonist until later into the campaign. The other human faction, in many mechanics, is very similar to White Sharks, sharing many characteristics, like the need of oxygen supply, using the same resources, similar structures in factions, etc. My feel is that they are much more technological and advanced race. Judging by the employment of lasers and optical camo, pioneering many technologies in the universe, some of which White Sharks steal from them, and their arsenal of slow, expensive, powerful vessels might prove a sufficient hurdle for my underwater marines. You could think of them as a Terran Protoss type of thing, I guess. First attack starts as early as 4.5 minutes in. Weirdly enough, the enemy fighters come to the Allies base to destroy a transub and aquarium mine and return home. Good for me, otherwise that might have been already a restart. While building up my Sentinel force from 2 sub-centers, I start the necessary research. Allied constructor sub went its way to the edge of the map for some reason. Yes, to steal a metal deposit. I don't think it will be untouched for too long though. I vaguely remember that I might need more corium later, so I send my own constructor to grab the neighboring deposit for myself. And there it is, the Black Octopi force starts pelting the Ally sub, and I arrive to the rescue. Sadly, I didn't show much of the actual fight, because right at the moment the research for rep subs is done, and I was busy queuing those for construction. Unfortunately, the middle extractor stays up after my brave subs clean up. I'd take that for myself right there, because my own deposit was just exhausted. Another enemy wave arrives seconds later, demolishing an allied air extractor before getting swallowed by my baby squadron. On a side note, air supply kinda takes a role of a supply limit from other games, but instead of blocking the building of more units, it makes some stuff happen at a much slower rate, be it producing units, research, and other things. After building 3 repair platform submarines, I get my new orders. I produce 3 cargo containers containing 1,500 corium each and load those onto the rep subs and bring them to the southern corner of the map. Easy enough. That's why I grabbed another corium deposit a couple minutes ago. Also, enemy subs do me a favor and destroy that one ally mine, and I grab it for myself, since I got metal shortages for a while. Well, I almost let my allies grab it again, but I wake up in time and proclaim dibs. A bit later, when I went to explore for some more resources, my force gets caught between 2 big clumps of black octopi subs, and it gets a bit scary. A destroyer's single volley takes a sentinel to around half its hit point after all. Luckily, enemy wasn't too aggressive, and me retreating back to my buildings makes them disengage easily, and I get to keep my forces. Also, now I noticed that around 60 minutes in I get random 1000 metal out of nowhere. Weird. Saves me time, I guess. After a bit of waiting and additional harassment by the enemy, I get bored and start creating the necessary cargo containers. I never know if I need exactly the requested amount of resources to finish the objective, or if I can go a bit above the required number. I send my unit south and start cleaning up the region. The engagements seem to go grim, but it turns out I have enough units to destroy the enemy subs, and have 8 sentinels to go back home to tell the tale. I rebuild some of them, and I run out of the corium income, so I send what I have back south, engage some leftover static defense and subs, and spot an unclaimed green patch right in the middle of an enemy base. The rest of the BO structures gets wiped, and I find another deposit to the west. Sell some metal to buy more corium, produce the rest of the containers, and bring them where they need to be, and finish the mission. So far, so good. This mission is one that I remember much more clearly, since it was in the tech demo. I am to find an outpost, research the enemy cipher key technology there, construct an info center, and hold out 15 minutes for reinforcements. We start with a decent number of sentinels and hunters still. I get rid of the other subs before I proceed. I still don't remember where the outpost is, so after heading out, I run into the enemy forces, lose the rest of my combat units, and I reckon I were to lose the cargo transports too, so I reset the mission. They come preloaded with a bit of resources, and I'd rather keep them all when I find the base. Second attempt goes almost as bad. I let the transubs go first while hunters get blown up, enemy forces catch up to the transports and I lose one of them. Also one of the cannons gets a kill anyway, so I reset again. At least I know where the outpost is now. Third time's the charm, right? This time I reach the outpost with most of my forces, not losing a transport, and also picking up an enemy metal mine on the way. Luckily I wasn't followed by too many of the enemy units. I unload the resources and get to repairing the outpost. I forget that I could dismantle the turrets to get back some resources, foolishly, and I make them destroy each other. I don't know what I was thinking back then because I dismantled the depot later. I set up the extractors in the base and start building up my sentinels. Some hit and runs from the enemy players continue while I start researching the info center tech. On the previous mission I researched the sonar, as setting it up helps in warning me of the incoming attacks. When the info center tech finishes, I construct it in the middle of the base and the countdown starts, as well as more harassment. Turns out enemy already started deploying their heavy cruisers. These are bad news. They are very bulky, slow units equipped with a ruby laser, and one volley leaves a sentinel with a sliver of health. Laser blasts are also much more likely to hit an opposing sub during its evasive maneuvers, so even without upgrades, laser weapons do tend to be relevant. Good thing is that the opponent don't really commit to their attacks and retreat to their subs rather quickly. That is until 10 minutes are left on the countdown. A huge simultaneous attack from both enemy players arrives and decimates my fleet. Whole section of the base gets phased to the seafloor with the info center, and I lose the mission. Oh, and another player even places a mine on my resource deposit. The next attempt starts a bit worse. I do lose one transport and an air extractor after reaching the base, but the black octopi quickly leave me alone. I did decide to continue anyway. This time I dismantled the cannons for extra resources. I beat up all the important buildings, start researching the cipher key and raise my fleet a little quicker this time. The info center attack finishes and I decide to hold off building it a bit, so I can gather more defending units. After multiple skirmishes with the enemy fleet, my sentinel count reaches over 100 at 26 minutes in, when I finally decide to construct an info center, this time deeper into my base, so it won't get accidentally picked off. Couple big waves of enemy submarines do stop by, but it seems like I reached a critical mass of babies and there aren't many major losses, even as my metal extractor runs out. Before 5 minutes are left on the timer, Black Octopi makes one of those double-pronged attacks, but their attempts are repelled by the swarm and they retreat. Funnily enough, they even started to field the Defender, a mine layer type of submarine, which is kind of a rare sight. The rest of the time runs out without much disturbance. The reinforcements arrive in the form of various heavier subs I wouldn't even use. The talking head mentions my ego for some reason, and I win the mission.